did not record who exited the ship at the final stop in Vancouver. There was no record of Marion ever leaving the ship, nor was there any record of her buying so much as a drink with her sea pass. Kendall spoke with Brian Branley, the detective assigned to Marion's case, and was told there wasn't much to work with. However, they did have enough information to press Royal Caribbean to file a missing persons report with authorities in Vancouver. Royal Caribbean, however, did not file a report in Vancouver and instead waited 5 weeks before reporting her disappearance to the FBI. The supervisor, who had ignored Montero's reports, was fired and ushered off the ship before any investigators could speak with him. The man, whose name has never been revealed, was a Greek national and returned home. While his address was later located, the man himself wasn't found, and it was assumed he took a job on another cruise line, possibly one operating in the Mediterranean. The missing persons report wasn't filed by Royal Caribbean until Marion had already been missing for a month. In desperation, Kendall hired one of the largest private investigation firms in the country, operated by a former San Francisco detective. 2 months after Marion's disappearance, in November of '04, investigator Tim Schmolder was granted access to the Mercury while it was docked in Monterey. According to the Arizona Republic, Schmolder put in his report that he found the cruise manager defensive and that his time on the ship was limited to a few hours as there was a training course set for that day. At the time, the cruise line would not disclose Domingo Montero's name as the steward who had last seen Marion and serviced her room. This information wouldn't be revealed until subpoenas were later issued by investigating authorities. The only information given to Schmolder on this topic was that the steward was a male from India and that he was now working on a different ship. The hotel manager in charge of rooms and bookings was on vacation and therefore could not be interviewed. Schmolder was made aware that surveillance cameras were in place on the ship and that a security officer was in control of them. However, he was not allowed to speak with the security officer and was told that the tapes existed on a 3-week cycle, meaning that any footage from Marion's cruise would have already been taped over. It was later revealed that even after reports of Marion's disappearance from Montero, the items left behind and contact by the Cambridge police, no one had even reviewed the tapes. According to Schmolder, Marion's cabin was a short walk upstairs or up an elevator to an observation deck, which was approximately 100 feet above the waterline. While Schmolder reported that it's somewhat unlikely no one saw Marion walking up to the deck since she would have been in her underwear and jumping off, suicide couldn't be completely ruled out. He added, however, that it's also not impossible that someone pushed her off the ship. While Schmolder's report answered some questions, it opened the door to many others. Kendall was upset by the report, but primarily by the lack of cooperation from Royal Caribbean staff. In his opinion, they didn't seem interested in Marion's disappearance in the slightest and seemed more focused on moving away from it. Furious with the situation, Kendall hired lawyers operating out of Massachusetts and Florida to begin digging into the case. Subpoenas were issued, and finally, in January of 2005, 2 Royal Caribbean employees gave depositions by telephone. One of these employees was Domingo Montero, who stated emphatically that he had reported the disappearance multiple times and, in his opinion, Marion did not seem upset, out of sorts, sad, or angry. While Schmolder hadn't been able to speak with the hotel manager, he was the second man deposed. Christos Hadjipetris testified that the cruise line had conducted its own internal investigation into Marion's disappearance and that the supervisor had been fired. He continued on that as soon as Marion had been noted as missing, the information should have been delivered to ship officers and the captain, but this had not been done. In hopes of receiving additional information, Kendall wrote to Royal Caribbean's chairman of the board. Weeks later, he received